Stories of the past, roots and tradition, memories are cast in an Appalachian reunion. A taste of heritage, screen porch suppers, tales tall as a mountain ridge as we go deeper in the holler.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Appalachian Tale podcast. I'm Jimmy Proffitt, your host, and we're going to go a little bit deeper in the holler with Appalachian Hospitality. This is another solo episode this week with me. You can hear, maybe I do have some guests. My neighbor's dogs are in the background barking, so I don't know if it's going to filter that out when I edit this or not. But anyway, if you hear the dogs, that's just Roscoe and Copper that are out there barking. And I don't mind. I love the sound of their barks. I think it kind of tickles me a little bit. But Appalachian hospitality, I want to talk about that and how I think it differs a little bit from Southern hospitality. People talk about Southern hospitality all the time and how it, it's just how we act here in the South. But Appalachia is more than just Southern. There's North, Central, and Southern Appalachia. And I think, I grew up in Central Appalachia. I think these things are true throughout most of Appalachia, and it does feel very Southern at the same time. But when I think of Southern, I think of it being a little more refined, a little more, there's more romance in it, perhaps, when you think about maybe the Sunday suppers and the brunches and the get-togethers and the baby showers and that kind of thing with Southern hospitality. But, when it comes to Appalachian hospitality, I think it's a little more comfortable than formal, a little more casual. Nobody cares if your house is spotless or not. They know you and they're always welcome in your house. So it doesn't mean that your house is going to be dirty necessarily, but they're not, and you're not worried about me picked up. I mean, they might say, "Oh my gosh, my house is a mess. Please forgive me," or just look past the mess. And you're like, it looks fine to me and I don't care. It doesn't bother me because it doesn't bother us. And guests are welcome into your everyday life. It's just how you're living. Because a lot of these things, they're just dropping by and you sit wherever there's room. So it might be the kitchen. It might be the living room. It could be the front porch a lot. For us, it's on the back porch. It's on our screen porch. Mick and I will be out here sitting and somebody will drop by and they just come in and come on the porch and we all sit here and we talk. We're not as good at the hospitality part, I think, sometimes, because I don't think to ask, would you like something to drink or bring out a snack? But there are times that we do. A lot of times we'll invite people over for a screen porch supper. So that's that's our Appalachian hospitality right there. Because we're doing it on the porch, that's where Mick got his screen name, his social name, Mick on the Porch. Now the train is going by. So, usually I'm in the greenhouse studio and that is behind me. If those are watching, you can see that behind me, but it's getting dark. I don't have electricity out there in the greenhouse. So I'm out here on our screen porch right now. So that's why you see all this behind me here, but you can see our shed out in the backyard and the greenhouse over here and trying to make sure there's enough light so you can see. It's a little dim, a little fuzzy, but that's okay. But like I said, people sat wherever they were comfortable. And you were more concerned with making them feel at home than making an impression. And, I think Appalachian hospitality is more unplanned. It's not scheduled. People are just dropping by. My mom would have her best friend come over every Monday night. It was one of our neighbors, Ann, and every Monday they would sit down in the kitchen after dinner and they would drink their coffee and smoke a couple of cigarettes and they'd talk about their day and talk about, work and family and what was happening that week, all that kind of stuff. So it was not planned, but it was kind of scheduled a little bit maybe. But if Ann had something to do Monday night or mom had something to do, they just, went ahead and did it. They might tell the other one, "Hey, I'm not going to be home tonight." And they would just, another night it might happen. But anytime um, she did come by. Mom always made sure she had, the coffee ready, and they would just sit there and chew the fat, I guess, a little bit. And when I would go over to Mary and Charlie's, Mary always had a kettle on the stove. So, um, it didn't matter, when somebody showed up, but she'd have that kettle going, and they didn't drink coffee, but they did drink tea. So we'd have hot tea when it was cold out. We'd have iced tea when it was hot out. And we might sit there in the kitchen if that was the case. She'd pour the hot water in the coffee mug. We didn't have teacups, so it wasn't pretentious. It was very comfortable, very casual. And um, we'd get our tea started, and she'd get some cookies out on a plate, maybe, or um, she might have some cake that she had baked the week before, and it was just her and Charlie. So they wouldn't eat the whole thing. She would cut it up into slices and put it in some Cool Whip bowls and stick it in the freezer. So then she'd get out her Mamaw Tupperware and give you a slice of cake. For that, she'd grab a plate. But if it was, just a little square of something or some cookies, usually just a napkin was all it took. So it wasn't fancy. It was always just very informal and very comfortable. And you helped yourself. I didn't have to wait for her to get everything out. I knew where the canned milk was, which is what we used in our tea. We didn't use creamer or cream or milk. We had canned milk. Um, and for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about with canned milk, that would be the evaporated milk, not the sweetened condensed milk. Those are two different things. But even Mom used canned milk, and that's what we called it, canned milk, because it came in a can. Duh, obviously. And and that's what we all had, and that's what we all used. And conversations were just very casual. It was about what was happening. It wasn't a planned visit, so you didn't have a topic of conversation. Where with Southern hospitality, you tend to think there's a reason that you're there. It's a gathering of some sort or something. So you had a topic that, things you were going to be talking about. But conversations on the front porch are just that. They're very flowing and easy, and they can be all over the place. And they might be fun, they might be unpleasant, they might be happy, they might be political, it might be whatever. Um, but it was just woven into everyday life. It could be that hospitality, at least is what would happen in your home, can happen any time of the day, really, day or evening. Because you didn't need an invitation. You just dropped by. And it was hospitality in Appalachia is also gracious and not gratuitous. So if you hear that somebody needs something, you just show up with it, or show up to help whatever needs done. This past week, I was out of town at my best friend's house because her son unexpectedly passed away. And in those moments, you just show up. I did check with her and make sure that she would be okay with me coming. I didn't want to intrude in any way, knowing that there was going to be family probably showing up and things. But I just wanted to be there to help her and do whatever I could do to help and not be a burden on her in any way. So I told her, I can stay somewhere else. I don't have to stay with you. Although usually when I go, that's where I stay, is at their house. And she said, no, absolutely stay here. And I know where everything's at. So might ask her, where's this or that, to get it, but I would get it myself and wasn't putting any extra on her in that time, and just being there. So, to help greet as people came by, help warm up food as somebody was hungry. I prepared breakfast for us one morning, and other people would stop by with food, obviously. And that's what everybody in the South does anyway, and maybe everywhere. I don't know. I've only lived in Virginia and Tennessee, so I don't know what people do in other areas, but I'm assuming it's pretty similar. But that's the first thing we do when we hear that somebody's passed away, is we bring food to the family, because we know that lots of people are going to be stopping by. People are going to be hungry. The last thing you want to do is prepare a meal for a bunch of people, or even to have to get things out and warm them up. So you think about that, and you bring things that people can eat cold, that even kids can assemble themselves. So, things for sandwiches and finger food and snacks. Somebody brought by an entire her another one of her best friends brought by an entire box of nothing but snacks. So it was little bags of potato chips and crackers and cookies and trail mix and things like that that anybody could help themselves with. And even for them, if they just found a moment that they needed to just eat a little something, they could grab one of those real quick. In that moment, you're not thinking about what's healthy and what is good for you and all that. What's good for you is having people there for you in that time. That's what's good for you. So, it's like I said, it's the kindness that people extend in times like that. And even when you're working on a project, we were building our carport years ago, and those same friends came down to help us with the carport because they had skills that we didn't, and they helped us, put the roof on it. And they just came down to spend time with us when we got that done. And it might even be we do this all the time. We've got things growing in the garden. When we have extra, we give it to whoever we can. That's definitely, I think, some Appalachian hospitality right there. For years, when we would be putting a garden out at Mick's parents' house, those were 100-foot rows of whatever we were growing. Um, and we would have, I think one year we had 119 tomato plants. That was way more tomatoes than we were ever going to keep ourselves. I couldn't freeze that many, can that many, cook that many, eat that many sandwiches or whatever we were going to do with them. So we set up a table out here on the sidewalk and put a sign up, and I put paper bags out and I said, free produce, take what you like. And there was squash and zucchini and, um, I don't know, beans, all kinds of things. When we had more than we could eat or use ourselves. And, some people helped themselves and they didn't take too much. They took just what they needed. It was funny, some of the people that would take the huge zucchinis and ones that we couldn't really use, but they would take those and, I guess they made something out of them. I make a mock apple pie out of it now today and use that, the large ones for something like that. But, um, that was just another form of hospitality, and some people tried to give us something in return, and there were some homeless people that came by, and we'll see those, we can usually tell, or suspect, I should say. I don't wanna assume too much on somebody, but, one guy really wanted to give us something back, and he left us a record album. And, you know, he didn't know if we had a record player or any way to listen to it. But it's funny, it was an album from that I knew from when I was a kid. So, I thought that was pretty neat. But again, it's not expected. You don't have to do something in return. Um, and that's where I say it's more helpful than entertaining. Um, we're there to help for an event, but if you need our help, if there's anything we can do, but it might be something too as simple as splitting firewood for somebody, making sure that an elderly person has a trip to the drugstore or something like that. Just things that you can do just to help people out, and that's very hospitable. Because it's a focus on meeting needs and not expectations, if that makes sense. And you're creating experiences with people, you're bonding with people. We've gotten to know our neighbors here more in the last couple of years uh, because we've started walking more. And so we'll usually walk for a little bit after dinner, and we're walking around our neighborhood and we're seeing these people and they're seeing us, and we've gotten to know their names, and we stop and have conversations with them. They might walk with us a little bit, or last night we were headed out on our walk and our neighbor had some questions about, you know, plants that she was putting in and just wanted to make sure she was doing the right thing, that those are going to work or those are going to live, or how should she take care of them, what to do on her front porch. And so we stopped. It didn't matter to us. We were going to get our walk in still. And we talked to her for just a couple of minutes and her son, and that was kind of fun to catch up with them. So again, very um, unexpected or just impromptu. But happy to help in any way that we can. Um, And, you know, when you get together, the conversations, like I said, just flow. And it might be you're going to talk about family and the garden and all kinds of things like I would see my mom talk about, or Mary and Charlie and I would talk about. You know, we were a lot of times in the summer, we were talking about the garden and what needed done and what was going to happen next and who could do what, that kind of thing. Um, it's just where relationships are valued for just what, again, what they are, not what they're expected to be. Um, and I think too, there are times in Appalachia, I don't want to say that it's all comfortable and all very unpretentious. There are times we want to fancy it up too. We want to, you know, put on our Sunday clothes and we want to bring out the fine china. You know, it's funny when my aunt gave me my grandma's china, it's a Johnson Brothers pattern, and she had seen that I had posted some reels with some Johnson Brothers china that I had that I bought. And it's something that I wanted years ago and just started collecting, just place setting by place setting kind of thing. And she said that that was my grandma's favorite china, and she brought it out all the time. And I said, I don't remember this at all. Um, so she probably brought it out for company. She brought it out for the adult table, maybe. We were at the kids' table, so we didn't get that fine china. Not that it was fine china, but it was her favorite. It was her finest. And she gave me my great grandmother's one of her platters that she had. That's huge and really pretty, and I can imagine it came out for special occasions. So, you know, we certainly are going to get those out for holidays and big family special occasions. If the preacher's coming over, I remember my mom had some blue and white, wasn't really china, but dishes. And it wasn't I can't remember the name of the blue and white dishes, but anyway, it was a pattern that she really loved. And they were more like hostess size plates that were popular in the 60s. And they had some teacups to them. So there was a little bit of fanciness to it, but they were kind of I guess they're more of a mid-century modern kind of look to them, rather than a fancy kind of Victorian type of look. Plates like I use now are more that I love those old patterns. But anyway, she never got them out. They always sat in the china cabinet in the kitchen, which was a metal china cabinet. And every time you walked through the kitchen, the whole thing rattled. It was metal with glass doors. And so the doors would rattle on it and all the dishes inside would rattle. The whole thing would kind of shake around a little bit. Um, and uh, she only got those dishes out. Honestly, I think I just remember one occasion. Otherwise, they sat in that china cabinet. And she got them out because the preacher and his family were coming down for dinner. And we were all eating in the kitchen, and some ate in the living room. Some people, you know, a lot of us kids, we would just grab a plate and we'd go sit wherever we wanted to go eat. But I remember the preacher's wife getting up to get herself a little something more because mom set up on top of the freezer that was in the kitchen. We had a big chest freezer. So again, not pretentious, but she got out her best uh, for them. And uh, the preacher's wife got up and she had her plate in her hand and she turned around and the plate slipped out of her hand and just like a frisbee went straight for the side of the freezer, hit it and broke into a million pieces. And the preacher's wife was more devastated than my mom was. Yes, it was my mom's finest, but she also never used it. So it wasn't something that she had all these memories tied to, like a family piece. You know, it would really bother me if some of my grandma's china that I have today got broken. But my aunt was sick when a shelf in her china cabinet fell and all the plates got broken except for one. And it is chipped and I have it, but you know, it was definitely damaged. Um, so there weren't really memories tied to this other than it was what she considered her best, her fanciest. And mom did that with things. She put stuff up. I think I talked about in one of my Substacks, use the good stuff now because you know, why wait till later? That's what my mom did. She waited until later. So she always put up the good stuff. And I get it with 4 boys around. You didn't want to use it every day because you weren't going to have it if that was the case. But the one time she gets it out, a plate gets broken. Um, and so, you know what, that was just kind of a memory that's kind of, just locked away from me. And now I hear my dog bark and he doesn't know that I'm out here on the porch and he thinks there's a stranger sitting on the porch. But there are times that we, like I said, we want to make things special. So, we're gonna fix something a little bit fancier. I'm sure that was a fancier meal that mom made. And I remember the dessert. This sounds very Southern and very, probably very 60s, but, people talk about the pear salad. And if you don't know what that is, it's a half uh, uh, slice or wedge of pear, usually canned pears, and you would put a little dollop of mayonnaise in the center where you cored it out, and then some cheese on top. Well, my mom's version of that was the peach. So she would do a peach half, a canned peach half, on top of a lettuce leaf. So lay the lettuce out, a peach half on top of that, and then it was cottage cheese on top of that. And you might put a cherry on top of that if you were really fancy. Um, Now, I loved the peaches and the cottage cheese, and I still do today. And when I'm feeling nostalgic, I'll get that. But that was mom's being fancy at the time. And so you do those extra special things in those occasions, but it wasn't every day. And I think it made those special occasions even more special. I think if every occasion is special, it starts to lose its sparkle, its romance, its wonder. Um, so she would save those for things like the holiday open house, and we'd bring out. Now that can't remember. I think she had some other dishes she brought out for that. But if she was buying plates, she would get the nicer paper plates for something like that. Um, and that's just what Appalachian hospitality means to me. And like I said, I think it goes deeper than Southern hospitality. It's more comfortable. It's casual, and I think I don't want to. Well, I'm going to say it's more heartfelt to me um, than maybe Southern hospitality. We're not putting on airs in any way. And again, I'm not saying that people that are practicing Southern hospitality are only putting on airs, because they're not. I mean, I think they're genuine. Um, but I've seen people get too worked up over it. So most of our hospitality is pretty casual, and we'll save those moments that we need to get worked up. Again, thinking about this past weekend and my friend and what her family was going through, a friend of hers was taking on a lot of the planning and just taking care of things for us. So gathering pictures and planning how the celebration of life was going to go. And the moment that my friend felt like she was making too many decisions, she would just go, whatever you do is okay. And that's truly how she felt. Because the big thing was that they were all going to be together, and that was the important thing, and um, not the occasion itself, but that they would be together and support one another. So anyway, that's this week's episode. I just felt like talking about that. I was the other night when we were walking around, one of our neighbors said, it was nice to see us walking by again when they were out there, because they just planted more flowers in the flower boxes, and they were watering things, trying to keep things up. And they're a young couple. And so they, when they would see us um, last summer and some throughout the winter, if they were passing by, going in and out of their house. But he just commented that he really liked that, we had a chance to catch up again. And that's what it's all about. And it got me thinking about um, hospitality and how we do things in Appalachia, and how um, the front porch, the front door, the back porch, it's all open and it's welcoming and it's ready. So that's just what I was thinking about this week. So I hope y'all have a great week, and and drop a note here if you can and tell me what hospitality means to you, how you all um, lived in Appalachia and what it meant for you to be hospitable. Okay? All right. I'll talk to you soon. Well, friends, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to the Appalachian Tale podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Proffitt. This podcast is recorded in Greenhouse Studio right here in my backyard and produced and edited by me with a little help and a lot of encouragement from my husband, Mick. You might know him as Mick on the Porch. If you've enjoyed today's episode, like, rate, and comment, and share it with someone who appreciates a good story, good food, and a little bit of Appalachia. I'll talk at you later. Y'all be safe, and let me know you got home okay.